Well, Joe, thank you so much for being here with me on the Entrepreneurial Success Podcast. And like I said, just before we hit the recording button, I'm really excited to talk about today's topic because I think it's going to be so valuable for so many of us. And when I say of us,
Mhm.
women in particular. Before we dive into all the good stuff, why don't I hand over to you so you can introduce yourself to the audience and tell us what you do?
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much for having me on the show. My name is Jo Ibbott. I am an executive coach with a specialism in leadership and menopause. I'll explain a little bit how I got into that because it might seem a little bit random in a bit, but that's the sort of the nub of it at the moment. My business is Courage Coaching, and I support workplaces and women to have more positive conversations around menopause and to really think about what needs to change, what needs to happen as a result of these positive conversations as well. So, yeah, I founded What the Fog Facebook group back in 2020, which all of your listeners are welcome to join. It's a group for women to support women through perimenopause and menopause as well. Yeah, so that's me.
Amazing. And like I said, just before we started the recording, is, for us growing up, me in particular, if I can refer to myself, people didn't have conversations in those days about perimenopause and menopause. Women were
Mm,
just keeping quiet about
mm,
it.
mm,
I don't think there was a lot of word out there about it because maybe they just felt like it's one of those hush hush things.
mm.
But these days, I find that a lot more people are talking about it. There are a lot more people like yourself who's out there, who's in workplaces talking about it. And it is so valuable because at the end of the day, what we don't know, we don't know.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think there was a lot of cultural taboo around talking about it back in the day.
Yeah.
And I think that's why perhaps our parents didn't talk about it. And there wasn't an understanding either of actually this time of life and the impact it can have. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So we're
it's
going to dive into that in
yeah.
a bit.
Mm,
However, I'm interested a little bit into your story.
mm,
What made you decide to become an executive coach and to specifically focus on menopause and perimenopause? What was that
mm.
journey like for you, and how did that bring you to where you are today?
Oh, well, yeah, it's interesting. My background is in education. I was working in that sector, and I was actually made redundant, and the redundancy caused me, as it does, it was an opportunity for me really to rethink and to ask myself some questions about what I wanted to do with the next 20 or so years of working life, and it just gave me that space and opportunity to do that. And I discovered coaching, executive coaching, so coaching that's specifically work related, and about work, purpose, career, the who am I question, I suppose. And I trained as an executive coach, and I was coaching for a couple of years, anyone and everyone, because that's what you do when you first start coaching. And I hadn't got a corporate background, so it wasn't such an easy sort of, kind of shift into that world for me. So I was coaching people, and a lot of the people that I ended up coaching, not by design, but by, word of mouth. And I think you kind of sometimes attracts like as well, were women in midlife. And so I was coaching women in leadership roles in midlife and noticing that women were saying things like, I'm beginning to feel less confident than I once was. I'm not sure what's going on, but my brain is full of fog. I am not feeling quite as capable as I once was, which I thought was quite an alarming word, really. And these were women who were at the top of their careers. They'd got successful careers and feeling like they were falling off a bit of a cliff in midlife. And that caused me, I sort of was hearing this and then thinking about my own experience of perimenopause, which I didn't understand when I, was approaching it, when I sort of coasted into it. And then I had a conversation with a male coaching colleague friend, actually, and he said to me, "Who are you coaching? What's going on? Tell me about your business." And we started to talk about it, and we compared notes about our lived experience of this midlife point. And he was talking about his wife and the difficulties she was having with perimenopause. and how he didn't really understand how best to help her. I sort of was talking about the fact that, yeah, your brain gets really foggy and it's really tricky. You can't multitask in the same way, and it feels quite undermining and da 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 da. And he was the one that said to me, "Jo, this is a space that I don't think anyone else is actually coaching in the workplace, you know, within the context of work and career." He said, "I think this should be your niche because you've got the lived experience as well as a passion for women and supporting women." So I then retrained or added, not retrained, but added menopause coaching to my sort of portfolio, if you like. I trained as an executive menopause coach, and that was really about supporting the workplace to understand and to think about what their duty of care is, and raising awareness of it as an issue, because this was 5 years ago, and 5 years ago not many people were talking about it. It was, you know, it was emerging as an issue. And so I did that. And then as I learned more and more about menopause and perimenopause, firstly I was incensed that I didn't know about it when I went, you know, when I was in my mid-40s. And secondly, I thought, this is awful that women have no idea and they don't know what they can do about it. So I decided to start putting together a bank of resources for women themselves as well, and decided that then I would focus my coaching particularly around that and supporting women through midlife and perimenopause and menopause and their careers, so that they're not making negative decisions at this time of life. So they, you know, they're making decisions from a positive place. So that's really how it came about. And I started the Facebook group What the Fog at the time in 2020, because I thought, I've got to do something with all this information I'm getting. And so yeah, so that was born then as well. And yeah, and the rest is sort of, it's sort of grown. And as these things do, it, you know, things emerge, and you don't always know when you're starting out in your business what you might have plans and thoughts, but things, as need arises, and as you know, as conversations happen, things change, don't they? And you start sort of, there are twists and turns. And so really my business has emerged from that, and dependent on the need that's there, you know, sort of like observing what women need and then going, okay, well, maybe we can do this then, and maybe we can do that. And it's really, that's how it's come about.
That's brilliant. And I'm sure as you were talking, so many people in the audience was now listening to this and going, yeah, that's me. I've experienced that. Or maybe they're listening and going, hold on, is that something that might happen to me in the future? So either way, you know, it is something that we need to know of, because there's big changes coming, but it is not something to fear, I would like to add.
Absolutely.
And I think there's this kind of stigma around it, that it is a horrible thing, you've got to fear it. It's not that. It's just you having the clarity and understanding about what can happen. And it doesn't happen for everybody at the same time. It's different, because everybody is different. Your body is different in comparison to other women.
Absolutely.
So my question to you is, as you mentioned menopause and perimenopause a few times, and I think that some people might know what the difference is, but other people might be listening to this going, yeah, I've heard of the terms, but I'm not quite sure what the difference is. So can you just explain the difference between perimenopause and menopause for us, please?
Of course. Yes, it can be hugely confusing. So menopause is effectively just one day. So menopause is the day 12 months after the day of a woman's last period. Now, that's all well and good, but for a lot of women, they have got no idea when their last period was, for all sorts of reasons. They might have a Mirena coil fitted. They might be on particular contraception. It might, it just, they might have had treatment that's meant that their periods have stopped anyway. And so it's really not an exact science, that side of things, really. So menopause is one day, but actually it's perimenopause that are the years leading up to menopause that's what we need to be more aware of and cognizant of and understanding of, because this is where we're beginning to produce less eggs, and so therefore we're not needing so many hormones to be released in order to release the eggs, and so estrogen and progesterone and testosterone start to decline. But before that, they fluctuate, and it fluctuates hugely. So whereas our menstrual cycle might be quite, sort of rhythmic, and you kind of you go through that 30-day cycle, when perimenopause strikes, if you like, it's actually it's much more up and down and irregular, and it's all over the place. And so and that's because the hormones are just declining, and everything's changing, and it's quite a major event really for the female body, and is much more than I think what has historically been understood by its period stopping and a hot flush here and there, and that's it. So the three main hormones that are changing or declining are estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. Testosterone is an important hormone for women. We actually produce more testosterone from our ovaries than estrogen, and yet it's still seen very much as a male hormone, but that can have an impact as well on women. And because we have estrogen receptors everywhere, on every cell in our body, and testosterone receptors, when these fluctuations and imbalances start to occur, it can impact us and have an impact all over. That's why there are so many different symptoms, and they're not just in our sort of body, if you like, it's brain as well, which is why women talk about brain fog and cognition issues and those sorts of things. So we have these receptors all over our bodies, and so therefore when things go out of whack and it upsets so many of the systems and in our bodies, and hence the difficulty. Perimenopause can last, the average kind of time that it lasts is between 4 and 7 years, they reckon. So actually, if you think menopause, the average age of menopause, that one day, is 51 years of age, then women can be in perimenopause for most of their 40s, and the whole transition, the average age is 45 to 55, but for a lot of women it starts to happen a lot sooner than that. So they start to notice symptoms in their early 40s or even in their late 30s. So it is something that for younger women it's really important to understand, because it's just another part of being a woman that we're about to, that our body takes us through. And if we understand and if we know about it, knowledge is power, as they say, but only if you do something with it. And so that's why I'm passionate about women understanding and then going and doing something about it, because it doesn't have to be a car crash, and it doesn't have to be terrible, as you've already said. So that's it in a nutshell. And then we're postmenopausal for the rest of our lives. So it's not that we're, menopause comes, oh, I'm through it now. Actually, postmenopause is forever, and that can have implications on our long-term health as well.
Yeah. One of the things you mentioned there is obviously the fluctuation in the periods that happens, which is one of the symptoms that most people start seeing. You mentioned brain fog, but I know everybody is different, but what are some of the key symptoms that makes us go, ooh, this is it, I'm going or starting to go through the perimenopause phase? What are some of those key symptoms, including the fluctuation in periods, that we need to look out for?
Well, there are anything between, depending on where you look, 34 and 100 symptoms of perimenopause. So, and I think the more that we're understanding about, our hormones and the systems in our bodies, the more they're recognizing. But for a lot of people, they can still be having regular periods, but be perimenopausal. So that's important to say. So it's not necessarily that your periods start to fluctuate or become irregular. It can happen. It can be happening, and you're having regular periods. But yeah, brain fog, joint pain, Tinnitus, that's a random symptom. For me, it was low mood, it was a rise in anxiety, it was insomnia. That can be a nightmare to deal with. So all of a sudden you start being you start being unable to sleep. Or for me, it was waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning, unable to get back to sleep. And it was and I was like, what's going on? I've never been a bad sleeper before. This is crazy. Any sort of sleep disturbance can be a sign. They just memory issues. A lot of women talk about really actually being really genuinely scared that they are getting Alzheimer's, or sort of early onset, because words fall out of the words just fall out of your head. It's unbelievable. Names fall out of your head, and people that you've known for forever, suddenly you cannot remember their name anymore, and that can be quite disturbing when you're used to not used to that. Those sorts of cognition issues can be a problem. Just not being able to juggle in the same way or remember things can be really tricky. And then obviously hot flushes we all know about, but not every woman gets hot flushes. So if you're looking for hot flushes and you're not getting them, that doesn't mean you're not perimenopausal. For me, it was just a constant hot sweat. I was a hot, sweaty mess. I couldn't, because what happens is estrogen decline stops so at the hypothalamus is where we regulate our temperature in the brain, and that because estrogen starts to decline, we can't do that so well. So it has a big impact on our brains as well. Other things include, let me just think, UTIs, so vaginal dryness. They call it now the genitourinary syndrome of menopause, and that's vaginal dryness. It's sort of recurrent UTIs and dryness around the vulval area, and discomfort. People sometimes think they're getting recurrent thrush, and they're treating it with thrush medication, but it's not going away, and they're uncomfortable. There can be lesions. That's really debilitating, and that won't get better on its own. So it's really important that you get some vaginal estrogen and good moisturizers to sort that out, particularly with UTIs and things. And there are also things like, you see, this is where my brain goes blank. I'm just going to get my list, because dry skin, itchy skin, estrogen is a great moisturizer. So we might find that our skin is itchy. Some people talk about having creepy crawlies, and that feeling of creepy crawlies under
Oh,
your
yes.
skin, which is
Yes.
horrible. Yeah. So that's not very nice. Gut health changes, bloating. You might find that you're less tolerant to certain foods. And again, we have estrogen receptors in our guts. So when estrogen declines, we can find that we start to have problems with bloating and gut health and these intolerances. That was something I certainly had. Headaches increasing, low libido, and again, you might think, well, it's midlife, that's kind of what life's like, but actually, it's very much a symptom. Weight gain, oh my goodness, so many women talk to me about weight gain. Why am I putting on weight? I can't lose it. It's going on around my middle. It's that belly fat. It's I've never had that before, or it's just got worse. So that can be a real problem. And then things like palpitations, rage. Rage is an interesting one, because I think people think that's quite a funny thing when they see it, or it's not happening to you when you're an onlooker. You can sometimes think, oh, they're just like this grumpy woman, but that can be really, really tough for women to deal with, because there's this rage that rises, and there is nothing they can do about it in that moment, and they feel like they're not themselves anymore. Then women also talk about just not feeling themselves anymore. I don't feel like me anymore. I don't know what's happened. I've lost my joie de vivre, and I can't look forward to things. There's also the feeling overly emotional, just not being able to regulate your emotions in the same way, which again, particularly in a work context or in public context, can be really difficult to deal with. So it can be many and varied the impact. And yeah, but often actually what women say is it's the psychological symptoms that have the
Yeah.
biggest impact, and those can look like, or you can think that they are being caused by so many other things that are going on in life, because at this time of life we're dealing with a lot. We're often juggling family, caring responsibilities. We might be have sort of got a busy, stressful job as well, and career. um and it can be really difficult to sort of get people going, is that it, or is it this, or is it because I'm
Hmm.
dealing with all of this? So it can creep up. I talk about symptom creep, and that's certainly what happened to me. It was a gradual, oh, hang on a minute, what's going on here? I don't feel like myself anymore. My mood is low. I can't look forward to things. I don't understand what's going on. Do I need antidepressants? That was my thought process.
Yeah.
And it was a gradual thing. Oh, irritability, that was another one. Oh my goodness. Intense irritability, completely and utterly directed at my poor husband, who is lovely and did not deserve it. But I actually thought, at one point, I thought, is this the end of our 25-year marriage? Is this it now? Because there's something going on here that I don't, in me, that I couldn't articulate, that I just knew I was really annoyed by him and
Yeah.
irritated. He wasn't doing anything different or anything wrong. So, and again, I speak to other women who have the same experience of that. And it's only in hindsight that you go, oh, what was going on there?
Yeah.
That was weird, So yes, it,
Quite varied.
quite varied, yes. And not everyone gets symptoms.
Yeah.
So 20% of women go through without any symptoms, and we cheers and high five those women, and we say how lucky they are. um but for a lot, but 80% will have at least one, sort of like really quite
Yeah.
challenging symptom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like we said in the beginning, this is not something to scare you with. So for the audience listening, just going, oh my gosh, this is a lot to take in.
Yeah.
That is not the case. This is the reason why I've got Jo here, because she is a fountain of knowledge that we need in order to understand what are some of the things that we need to look out for. And I think, I'm not having this interview with Jo to scare anybody or to make your dive your head into a sand and think, I'm not going to talk about this, I'm not going to think about this. Knowledge is key. That's it. And
Mm.
just like Jo said, not everybody will experience all of the symptoms. You might get 1, 2, 3, but it's ordered for you to know what are some of the things to look out for. So when they do occur, you go like, I can put a tag on that. I can
Mm.
notice what is it that is happening with me. And then, of course, you know where to start looking in order to get some help, which we'll talk
Mm.
about in a minute as well. But tell us a little bit, because I know some of the things you mentioned there with those symptoms. The other thing is that this can also have an impact on us at work,
Mm.
in relationships, in life. You mentioned a few things there already. But from your experience, how do you see this impacts women overall? Let's just say in a work environment, first of all.
Mm. In the work environment, I do a lot of workplace training, and so I go into organizations and talk about this. And what I see happening is women think that they are becoming less. So they
Mm,
think they're becoming less capable. They think they're not able to do their job in the way that they once could. And because as women, we want to do a good job, and we want, we care about this stuff. They then make decisions based on this feeling of lack and of
mm,
feeling less, because nobody's joining the dots, and it can be very, it is a magical mystery tour sometimes. So I think what I see happening is women going, I just don't, I'm not going to take the promotion because I'm not sure that I'm as capable as I once was, which is what I was talking about at the start, really. Or I just I don't want to be seen to be doing a bad job. Or in the workplace, the other thing is it can be excruciatingly difficult to talk about, particularly if you're in a workplace that you know, the culture isn't, you don't feel safe enough to talk about this because it's a very personal journey that we're
Yeah.
all on. And so if you don't feel that, then you might not feel that you can be at work, but you might not feel you can say the real reason why you're not at work. And therefore you don't get the help and support that you need at work. And it remains this hidden taboo subject.
Yeah.
And so for a lot of women, when I ask the question, what prevents women from, from giving the real reason why they're things are difficult for them, it's embarrassment, it's fear of being labeled, it's they don't want to appear less capable than their colleagues, the younger colleagues or their male colleagues, and that because there is already this slightly we live in an ageist society. It can, this sign of getting older, which perimenopause is about us getting older, we can't get away from that, it's happening anyway. But that can make it much harder to even admit that it's happening to us, because it signifies something that isn't respected within our culture very often, and isn't often respected within our organizations either. And that's the narrative that needs changing, and that's the piece that needs fixing, so that
Yeah.
women can actually be honest about what's going on and say, it's not me, it's perimenopause, and actually I just need this to happen for this period of time, and then we'll be all good. It doesn't have to be a massive deal, but it becomes a big deal because of the so much of the taboo that's around it, and the shame that women talk about, feeling shameful about it. You think this is something that is happening, we've got no control over this happening, it happens to every woman, why should we feel shame about this thing? That's not okay. And that's a cultural and societal piece.
Yeah.
And that's the bit for me. So in terms of work, 1 in 10 women leave the workforce because of symptoms. We know that from research. 67% say that it affects their ability to work, or that there's sort of feeling of capability in work. And there's been loads more research over the last 3 years about the impact. You can go and go to the Forset Society. The government did, the previous government, the Women Inequalities Committee, did a piece of research, menopause in the workplace, and interviewed women, and then put forward a load of recommendations, most of which were not carried forward by the then government, but hopefully things are changing. But it does have an impact, and it's, the cost is huge, the cost in sick days, the cost in to the employer, as well as to women themselves, because if women are stepping back or out of their careers in midlife, there's a financial cost there, to their pensions, to their future careers, and all of those things. So it has a massive impact, and I
Yeah.
think we're just beginning to understand that as we're beginning to talk about it more, quite
Yeah,
frankly.
exactly. Which is why I said in the beginning,
Mm,
the word is getting out there slowly but
mm,
surely, but it is
mm.
getting out there, which is the key,
Yes.
because it is inevitable.
Yes.
But let's talk a little bit about how we then, or let me rephrase this. What options do we have then
Mm,
to
mm,
work with perimenopause and menopause rather than against it? What is available for us so we know that there is help,
mm.
basically?
Yes. So the what is available is things like looking. So the thing I say to women is this is the perfect opportunity to press pause. It's a bit of a cliche, to press pause and to ask yourself some good questions, and they can be, what do I need, what do I need now? So it's the oxygen mask analogy. When you go on a plane and they say put the oxygen mask on yourself, I think perimenopause offers us that opportunity to put the oxygen mask on ourselves, to recognize that our bodies are doing weird and wonderful things, and our energy levels might be different. We may be struggling to think in the same way. It's not going to last forever, but what do we need in order to get through this time? And also, what do we need in order to set ourselves up for good future health? Because now is the time to do that too. and it's really important. So the first thing really is about self-care. It's about noticing, it's about not ignoring it, not sweeping it under the carpet, not listening to the cultural narrative and the, and what society says about it that's negative, but saying, okay, this is happening, so what do I need? And then we might need to think about how we what we can change, what in terms of our lifestyle, and there's loads we can do to support feeling so much better through this time in terms of nutrition, exercise, how getting good sleep hygiene, and stress management. Stress management is so important because again, the decline in estrogen and progesterone and testosterone has an impact on cortisol. And so we might find ourselves feeling more stressed more of the time, and we need to therefore think about how to manage that. And there are many things we can do for that as well. And then the other thing is not discounting HRT as an option because of previous headlines and old research and myth and misunderstanding. So do your research around HRT. Body identical HRT is very, very safe. It's seen by women's health specialists, GPs and doctors, menopause specialists, to be the gold standard treatment for menopause symptoms, but also to protect our future health as well.
Yeah.
And so it's really important that women do their research and go and have a good conversation with their GP. Go and find a women's health specialist GP at their surgery if you have one. Not all of them have them. If they don't, ask the receptionist who they would talk to about this stuff, because receptionists are generally women in midlife. I know that sounds like a massive generalization, but that is the case. So talk to them. Say, who would you talk to about this? And go and have a conversation about that. And but definitely arming yourself with good information is so important, and just stopping for a bit and going, okay, what do I need to change? What needs to happen now?
Yeah, exactly. And I love the fact that we're kind of finishing off the conversation with that, because now that people know what to look out for, they can now start doing the research, looking at what it is that they need, but understanding that you do need to take that step back and just go, oh, this is just that phase. It is okay. It's not all doom and gloom. Like we've always said, it sounds like it is, but it isn't.
Yeah.
Because your body will be different than other women's bodies. You will react differently. You'll have different symptoms, but it is good for you to still take that step back and go, okay, let me do my research. Let me know who I need to talk to, just like you said. But also understanding that there are options. And I think that's the key, because immediately, as soon as you start talking about the options available, it's almost like a relief. It's like, oh, phew, okay. So, this is not just something I've got to go through and bite the bit and try
put
and
my big girl's pants on and
pretend that everything is fine when it's clearly not.
Put up and shut up. All of that.
I know. Oh my gosh, Jo, this has been absolutely amazing. Just listening to you talk about this, like I say, a fountain of knowledge. And I appreciate it so much that you shared this. I mean, we can talk about this forever. Let's face it. But I think with the information we shared today, it will give everybody some food for thought. Those who's going through it to go, okay, there are options. Those who are maybe starting perimenopause, or those who are just listening and going, yeah, that will never happen to me. Just arm yourself with the knowledge. That's all I'm saying. And there are always options available. Now, one of the things that you particularly have available for us is a symptom tracker. Tell us about that.
So there are so many symptoms, and it can be really difficult to see the wood for the trees at this time. So I've got a symptom tracker on my website, which is just quite a comprehensive list of symptoms, and that's just to help you get an idea of, get a picture of what's going on for you right now. It's a snapshot, and you sort of answer it as today or over the last week or so, and then you might want to go back to to it, you know, do it again in a month's time, and you know, just see, because things change, and you know, you might get more symptoms and you might get less symptoms and you might get different symptoms. So it's just, yeah, just knowing. And I think just having that knowledge then helps you to build a picture of what's going on, and gives you more confidence to go and talk to your GP as well about it, and get the right help, you know, sort of healthcare help and advice too.
Yeah, exactly. And you also mentioned that if people would like to know a little bit more, obviously they can come and have a conversation with you,
Sure.
especially if they want to go and talk to their GP, but they don't know what to talk about or how to phrase it or what to say or what to ask. You could
Yes.
just help them, you know, kind of formulate what that conversation should be that they have with their GP in order to get the best out of that appointment, so to speak.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Yeah, you know, and things like HRT can be hugely confusing.
yeah,
And so I can run through all of that with women, just so they understand what they're, you know, if that's a route they want to go down, they can understand what they're asking for, and understand what it will do for them. You know, the GP appointment is 10 minutes. You don't get a lot
yeah,
of
true.
time. So talking it through can be really beneficial before you go. But yeah, and you know, I offer one-to-one coaching as well, so just sort of for all sorts of aspects of this.
Amazing. No, and thank you so much for making that available. So, for those of you listening, if you want to get the download of the symptom tracker, the details will be in my show notes where to go and get that. And of course, if you want to have a conversation with Jo, by all means, reach out to her. Her website details are going to be in my show notes, social media details, and of course, the Facebook group, What the Fog. Love that name. So, by all means, even if that's just the place where you want to start, go and join the Facebook group and then start having that conversation, see what other people are saying, learn from the other women in that group. But then, most importantly, if you really want to take that up a notch, go and have a conversation with Jo, because, like I said, she's a fountain of knowledge, and that's what we all need these days. So, yes, all of those details will be in my show notes. Thank you so
My
much.
pleasure. Thanks for having me. It's been great to chat to you.
You're welcome. We'll be in touch again soon.
Yes, hope so. Take care.